He will lead us through today's discussion on fundamental session on artificial intelligence, AI 101, exploring its implication for governance, education, and society. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Atty. Ira Paolo Pozon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Atty. Ira Paolo Pozon, Manager for Legal, Policy, and Quality Management at SEAMEO INNOTECH. I'm here to give you my presentation entitled, quote-unquote, How Do You Solve a Problem Like AI? Of course, those of us who have gone through the 70s or the 80s, you might have remembered the line, how do you solve a problem like Maria? Came from the movie The Sound of Music, and it showed the problematic young girl entering the monastery only to develop her character well to the point that she was no longer really a problem but a valued asset. And I'd like to present this idea to you much in the same way as you should look at AI today. Not as a problem, but as an asset or a tool. Before we get to the meat of the matter, I'd just like to present to you this definition of educational technology by Loyola University, Maryland. They defined it as analyzing, designing, developing, implementing, and evaluating the students, the learning materials, the learning process, and the learning environment for a better education. You may note that some of these images look quite unique, and I actually use them using GenCraft AI. A more modern definition by the tech advocate says, educational technology is the utilization of technology, mobile phones, applications, and software, again, for the betterment of the educational process. Same process here. I'd like to just point out, it's able to develop these photos using AI itself, GenCraft. Let's take a look at how we got to where we are today in terms of educational technology. 1967 was considered a milestone, a groundbreaking milestone, when Texas Instruments developed the first handheld calculator. 1972, when scantrons were used to automatically grade multiple choice tests. 1988, when laptops were actually first introduced and utilized as teaching tools. 1990s, when CD-ROMs became a predominant form of storage. In 2002, 99% of the American public schools had internet access, while in 1994, little less than a decade previously, only 35% had internet access. 2012, US schools used 1.5 million iPads, and by 2013, 90% of students under the age of 18 had access to mobile technology. So clearly you see the development of the technology in the school setting or in the education setting. The question is, how did we get here? From 60s and all that to 2025, where are we today and how did we get here? A study of mass adoption, or defined as achieving 25% of market access, would show how technology has developed and gained market access faster through the years. The airplane took 68 years, the telephone took 50 years, radio took 38 years, and television took 22 years. Again, just to receive market access, the PC only took 14 years, internet 7 years, the iPod 3 years, and the iPhone in 2 years and 3/4 of a year, or 2.75 years. As we go along, Facebook only took 2 years to achieve this market access, and Twitter only took 9 months. Consider how fast the same goal of achieving 25% of market access now, because technology is invasive, it's available, we all have it today. I'd like to take a guess, or give you a chance to guess at what the latter two products would have been. It might surprise you. Angry Birds only took 35 days to achieve 25% market access. And Pokemon Go, the popular augmented reality game by Niantic, only took 19 days. A very far difference from where we were when the airplane was trying to get the same goal. It took 68 years. Now let's take a quick look at where we are today in terms of the industry, how much has been spent in terms of development of educational technology and various other sub-technologies such as AI, virtual reality, among others. According to statistics from Holon IQ, global education and training expenditure has actually grown exponentially from 2.8 trillion in 2000 to 7.3 trillion this year. Furthermore, the expectation is that educational technology spend has doubled from 227 billion US dollars in 2020 to 404 billion dollars this year. Now let's take a quick look at advanced technologies growth in education in terms of technologies expenditures. AR, or augmented reality, and virtual reality has grown the largest in only 7 years. From 2018, it had 1.8 billion US dollars. In 2025, 12.6 billion US dollars. Artificial intelligence has grown almost 7 times, from $0.8 billion to $6.1 billion this year. Robotics has probably grown almost 3 times, from 2018's $1.3 billion to $3.1 billion. Surprisingly, blockchain, one of the earlier technologies to all of this, it was actually growing much faster pre-pandemic, has only grown about $500 million. Furthermore, statistics have shown that there are going to be 2 billion more learners between now and 2050. That is not a sign of overpopulation, but rather, if you look at the demographics, a lot of these learners are already alive or already existing, in the sense that we're not looking at new people, but rather reskilling the people already here. 640 million to 970 million would need post-secondary school education, 1,500 million, 1,200 million secondary education, among others. Now, we've seen where we came from, we see where we are today. Let me present to you what I think where we are heading. Let's take a quick look at NVIDIA, the developer of these high-powered processing chips. In March 2023, they developed and launched the H100 chip. If you take a look at it, ChatGPT-4 Turbo would need 8,000 of those chips and 15 megawatts of power to train the entire large language model of ChatGPT-4 Turbo. Less than a year later, they launched the Blackwell B200. You would now need only 2,000 of these new chips and only 4 megawatts worth of power to achieve the same training goal of training the entire ChatGPT-4 Turbo in less than a year. Let that sink in for a moment. Also, on the same day, they launched the Blackwell GB200. If you take a look at that photo for a bit, that is 2 Blackwell B200s on a single motherboard. And that is last year. They've launched newer chips, cheaper, more cost-efficient, which will lead us in terms of processing power and speed to achieve even greater things, hopefully even to quantum computing. Taking a quick look at statistics of orders of those chips, the NVIDIA H100 graphics processing unit chip in 2023 by customer, you'd see the massive demand for these chips. I'd also like to point out who the buyers are. Meta, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Oracle, Tencent, among others, are buying into these new chips. Why? Because these are the chips that are powering the development of various AI from all of these companies across the world. In fact, all of this demand, all of these purchases, prompted the stock surge of NVIDIA, where it rose as much as 10% on one single day, adding $240 billion to its valuation. That is more than the entire market capitalization of Intel. Let me show you this quick video of the market cap history of NVIDIA in less than 25 years. In 2010, its market cap was only 8.54 billion US dollars. 10 years later, hasn't grown too much. Well, respectively, it reached 244 billion US dollars. And on the 21st of June 2024, it reached a market capitalization of 3.38 trillion US dollars, making NVIDIA on that date most valuable company in the world, surpassing Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, Taiwan Semiconductors, among others. Now, also, I'd like to point out that this is not a one-time thing. As long as they keep developing new chips, more powerful chips, more faster chips, and more energy efficient, they'll probably still keep a large market capitalization. Why? Because the other richest companies in the world are all of their customers. Now, I hear a lot of people saying, I don't like AI because it will take my job. I don't like AI because it will make me unemployed. How true is that? It would all depend on how we accept that premise. The OECD, the University of Oxford, have said there are types of jobs that are at risk of automation and therefore at risk of being rendered redundant. From food preparation, construction, all the way to teaching, upper management, and politics. I'm wondering how true that can be. But I'd like to point out personal service, sales, customer service, and telemarketers are considered among the top jobs or top tasks that may be automated. And I put that in a Philippine perspective because the World Economic Forum said that 85 million jobs by 2025 are at risk of displacement. However, they also said that 97 million new jobs may emerge. Which is why I was saying earlier, AI will take my job only if I let it. If I reskill, if I learn how to adapt, if I evolve, I should be okay. And I hope all of you will understand that as well. These are things I've been saying for quite a while, actually. Without tooting my own horn, I've published articles and op-eds pointing to this particular thing. We must keep improving ourselves. We must keep recognizing the importance of innovations, changes in markets, and threats to disrupt, because we cannot afford to get left behind. Now let's take a quick look at what we should learn. If you're saying that these types of jobs are at risk of being automated, rendered redundant, what should we now do to prevent that? The World Economic Forum and the ASEAN have said top 10 skills now include stronger analytical thinking, active learning, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, leadership, the use of technology, the design of technology, resilience, reasoning. I'd like to point out why these are the top skills. Because these are the only skills that a human being can do. AI, with all of its speed, with all of its efficiency, cannot go beyond its programming or its code. It cannot think creatively, at least not yet. It cannot create originally, cannot think critically. Same thing, the ASEAN says skills that are on the decline are things that need manual dexterity. Manual dexterity, endurance, precision, sensory processing, reading, writing, arithmetics, programming. Skills on the rise, again, going back to the World Economic Forum, they're talking about things that only people can do. Systems thinking, creative thinking, analytical thinking, technological literacy, motivation and self-awareness. These are things that are inherent in human beings that we should now keep developing or keep on the front line, on the front burners. The founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, said, "We have the tools at our disposal. The bounty of technological innovation, which defines our current era, can be leveraged to unleash human potential." And I point out two words from this line. These are tools we should leverage, not be afraid of. Now, putting all of this back into the Philippine perspective, I'd like to ask you quickly, what industry do you think this is? They employ 1.7 million people, generate revenues of $35.9 billion US dollars, contribute 7.5% of Philippine GDP. They rent 466,000 square meters of office space. That's 48% of total demand of office space in the country. And they have 10 to 15% of the global market share of this industry. What industry is this? Business process outsourcing. We have been very proud of the fact that our BPO call center industries are number one in the world. We're really bringing in a lot of economic benefits to the country. But then I'm also concerned at how these industries might get automated. And I've seen them. I've heard them. In 2018, a bit of a side story, I was in Hong Kong where I heard a recording of a person arguing with a collection agent over the phone. So the collection agent calls, "Hi, good afternoon." Of course, this is all in Cantonese. "How are you? May I speak to Ira Pozon? I'd like to remind you, you have to pay your credit card bill." Pretend that you're Ira Pozon now on that call, and you're, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. The caller was cutting, the recipient was cutting the caller off. The recipient would not let that person speak. That person did not stop speaking. That person listened to what was said and reacted it in the next sentence. So it goes something like this. "I'd like to remind you, pay your credit card." Yeah, okay, wait, sorry. "Yes, do you know that if you don't pay by tomorrow?" Yeah, okay. The person making the call, the reminding of the credit card bill, was already AI in 2018. So, even one of the largest consultancy services in the world, Tata Consultancy Services, say AI could kill off most call centers, as reported by the Financial Times. CEO and Managing Director of Tata Consulting Services said chatbots would soon be able to analyze customers' transaction history and do much of the work done by call center agents. "I don't know that we are there today, but maybe a year or so down the line." So again, given how important that industry is to the Philippine economy, it's time to start preparing them, those employees in that industry, for a reskill or an upskill. Now again, according to the World Economic Forum, 50% of all employees will need some reskilling by this year. 50% of all working people across the world. How long would it take to start building these new skills and jobs, especially those online? Depending on the categorization, between 1-2 months to as much as 4-5 months. Now, going back to educational technology, how AI can apply in terms of educational technology, I emphasize quote-unquote few because really these are the only applications I could think of that would fit on a single slide. But really, AI now, given the hardware, has facial expression analysis, eye tracking technology, gesture and pose recognition. Consider this, and I've seen this demonstrated in a tech expo in Taipei, Taiwan. Single classroom, digital TV, camera, and an AI software backing it up. The camera and the software work together, scanning the room, scanning the micro impressions or ticks in the students, and tell the teacher on an iPad or in a tablet, call on student number 3, she's daydreaming. Student number 4 is uncomfortable. Student number 5 is almost going to fall asleep. Student number 8 is actually listening to you. How useful is that for most of the teachers, especially in larger classrooms? Among others, there's now machine learning-based engagement detection, assessment customization. You can customize your tests to the students. And to be able to show how effective the educational process is, can now use AI for data analytics. As you can see in the photo, emotion cues is one of those products that can tell whether students are actually paying attention. So Mark Natanagara, in his TEDx talk on machine learning, AI, and the future education, presented to us what the paradigm shift should be, really. He said, only humans can think out of the box. AI can only follow the rules they've been given. AI cannot experience generalize, reason, reflect, think abstractly, or understand relevance. A good education should do all of these things. Again, as I mentioned, we should be the ones with the ability to experience, generalize, reason, think abstractly, think critically, and use AI as a tool. I bring back these two slides from the World Economic Forum and the ASEAN. The top skills, again, on the rise are those that only humans can do. Now we go back to the question teachers all have posed for a while. ChatGPT is bad, it's wrong, it's allowing students to cheat. But humorously, if the students are submitting essays that ChatGPT made and the essay itself says, I'm sorry, as an AI language model, I am not able to complete this assignment, then, at least for these particular instances, I'm not really worried. But what about those that have the foresight, that remove what AI is saying, or that is able to use AI to cheat, but then redoes it in their own specific way, and among various ways that students may be found to cheat? Present to you the concept that the market will always catch up, it will always provide. Do you remember in the 1990s when the internet came out, everybody was saying plagiarism will be a problem in schools? Maybe it was, but the market provided tools that would search the essay or the submission and tell you what percent was actually plagiarized. I point you towards Turnitin, Scribber, QText, DupliChecker. What about AI-generated essays and documentation? Even now, the market is already beginning to provide undetectable AI, originality, content at scale, writer, copy leaks. What about images created by AI? Images created by Canva, OpenArt, chatbot app. Also, while it's not yet perfect, the market is already providing, AI or not, content at scale, photo forensics, forensically FID, Hugging Face, Luminarity, among others. So really, it may be a tool, much like every tool ever made from the history of mankind. It may be subject to abuse or to wrongful use, but it also can be regulated if you just allow it to be, really. ChatGPT actually has some brilliant uses for personalized learning. I point to you this video. Here, I asked it, quiz me on Latin legal maxims. Sure. What does this mean? And I type in my answer. Correct. What about this? Actus non facit reum nisi mens sit rea. Then you provide your answer. There's no crime without criminal intent. Correct? Not correct? Correct again. So you see, you can actually use it to quiz you. You can actually use it to help you prepare for your assessments or your examinations. What about if I don't know what the answer is? It will teach me what it is. In dubio pro reo means in doubt, decide for the accused. It's a principle that if there is doubt about someone's guilt, the decision will always be in favor of the accused. Res ipso loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. So you see how it can be used for good. It also enables stronger, personalized, or one-is-to-one learning. This video says, teach me about auctori incumbit onus probandi. It assumes, or it knows me as a licensed lawyer already. It tells me this. It's a fundamental concept in many legal systems. The principle actually means that the party making the assertion or the accusation has the responsibility to provide evidence to support their claim. Okay, makes sense. How do I teach that now to a child? Same legal principle. The person making the assumption, the accusation, or the claim has the burden of proof. Okay, for us adults, how do you teach that to a child? Now it says, imagine you have a toy. You say it's the fastest toy car ever. Friend doesn't believe you. In this case, it's up to you to prove that your car is actually the fastest ever. That's what actor incumbit onus probandi means. So you see, it gives us the ability to think differently also. You can ask it to help you out. How do I explain something to a child? How do I explain something to a teenager? I'm 10 years old. Can you teach me about actor incumbit onus probandi? Imagine you and a friend are playing a game and your friend says they've won. You don't believe them. They have to prove it by showing evidence or explaining why they actually won. You see how different it was from how it explained it to me when it knows me as a licensed lawyer, or how it explained it, the same legal principle, to a child. Now, because I mentioned it, I'm 10 years old, or the person I'm explaining this to is 10 years old, gives me a different approach as to how to teach the same legal principle. Now, teaching in the age of AI. Here are some of what I feel are the best practices that educators across the globe can adopt. If it's a test of knowledge, stop giving essay assignments. Make it an oral report. Why? It's always going to be you catching up to them, or you trying to find out if they actually wrote the essay, or if you want to make sure that they really understood it. Instead, let's embrace the fact that AI, ChatGPT, can write the essay for them. Write it with some accuracy. But you're testing for knowledge, so make them report it to you orally. And therefore, they feel, or they may feel that they got one over on you, but really, you achieved as the teacher what you wanted to do, which is to make sure that the knowledge is in their heads. Don't use multiple choice questions. Those are very easy for large language models, AI, ChatGPT, to answer. Instead, use visual aids in the questions, prompting an analysis from the student. Increase applied learning, assignments that are hands-on, projects that would give you real-world experience. These are things that a student cannot use as much AI in order to cheat. If understanding is your goal, use open-ended, scenario-based critical thinking or problem-solving questions. Remember the earlier example? That was actually where AI said, I'm sorry, I'm a large language model, I cannot answer this question for you. Because probably the question was more of a reflection or a reaction. Hi, Ira. Based on your own life, how would you apply the principle of actori or onus probandi into your answer of this question? It would result in an answer that is uniquely mine, based on my own life, as opposed to any other student out there, or even yours. And of course, much like when we had issues on plagiarism, when a student prone to previous typographical errors or grammar is suddenly submitting an essay that is almost worthy of a publishing award, if you know your student's writing styles, you should be able to catch it yourself, whether or not you use the tools that AI can present in order to tell you whether or not it's written by someone else or AI itself. And again, personalize your assessments. Reflections, critical thinking, these are what a student cannot use a large language model for. It needs some history of themselves in the answer. It's how I perceive a certain movie, and therefore how it applied to me, how it impacted me. These types of assessments will not be easily answerable by AI, or if at all, they will give very generic answers, which would not reflect your requirements for reflection. Now, is AI a threat? It's really a matter of how prepared we are to accept it, to examine it, to assess it. If we are able to accept things at first glance, regardless of how we feel about it, I leave that up to you. I caution against it. I hope that you are able to think critically It's not one of those instances where if it's found on the internet, it must be true. For example, take a look at these videos.
This week, we inaugurate a new administration. I'd like to begin by thanking just a few of the amazing people who made our remarkable journey possible. First, my good friend and the best lawyer I know, Ira Paolo Pozon. Thank you.
It's good to be home. My fellow Americans, Michelle and I have been so touched by all the well wishes we've received over the past few weeks. But tonight, it's my turn to say thanks to Ira Paolo Pozon of the Philippines. You have helped make our country's relations stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. President Trump, President Barack. How about this? Take a look at this.
As Sovereign of the United Kingdom, I knight thee, Sir Ira Paolo Pozon of the Philippines, Order of the British Empire.
Of course, with respect to Her Majesty, who we sorely miss. But the point being, you can get a person's voice or a person's photo and suddenly create funny videos. I made these using Parrot AI. I made these videos through Parrot AI, a very easy app you can download on your phone. Is AI a threat? In these cases, I would say depends on the purpose of which you're making a video. I made these videos to educate you, not to do anything sinister. Then perhaps it's not a threat. But I point you to this video of a Philippine news report sometime in 2024.
Sa pangkaraniwang panahon, baka nakakaliw pa ito, mga deepfake na pahayag daw ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Pero nakakabahala kasi ang mga video nilabas ng YouTube channel na Dapat Balita nitong nakaraang 7 araw. Una, kung titingnan mo yung mga captions or headlines niya, lahat sila tungkol sa giyera na sumiklap na raw sa pagitan ng Pilipinas at ng China sa West Philippine Sea. Halimbawa, China, umatake nung Martes, may napatay, nirat-rat ng kanyon. Meron itong 66,000 views at meron pang mga nagkomento. Meron ding China, pinasabugan ng Pilipinas, maraming sugatan. May 32,000 views na po ito. At ito pa, PBBM, dineklara na ang gera kontra China. Meron ng 46,000 views. Hindi lang po yan, meron pang parang boses ng Pangulo na nagtatalumpati sa video. Pakinggan po natin yan sa video na ito.
Lalaban na tayo sa China kapag patuloy pa nilang angkinin ang West Philippine Sea. Paimbestigahan ko din iyang si Duterte.
Ngayon, para lang malinaw, hindi diretsahang sinasabing ang Pangulo yun ang sasalita. Pero obvious na yun ang gustong palabasin dahil halos gayang-gayang boses na nag-uutos ng labanan. Lalaban raw tayo at paimbestigan niya si dating Pangulong Duterte. Yun lang, ang boses na ito ay peke po. Walang anumang ganong talumpati ang Pangulo. 2 sa 13 video sa page na ito, merong peking boses na animoy kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Paulit-ulit lamang po ang mga video ng mga litrato ng girian sa West Philippine Sea. Iniiba-iba lang ang captions at headlines, ang script ng istorya at yung mga boses.
So, in this case, I would consider AI a threat. These deep fakes with a pretty good imitation of the president's voice saying, I will fight China if they keep claiming the West Philippine Sea, is particularly threatening because, number one, it gained tens of thousands of views in only a number of days. Number two, the timing of these false reports. This was during the joint military exercises between the Philippine military and the US military. So, if you had believed it as truth, then who knows what could have happened. Which is why, again, I point out to you, there are threats, there are opportunities. It's up to us to decide. In fact, a number of measures were taken as a result of these deep fake videos or audio of our president. We have the House bill defining deep fake and defining its penalties in the House of Representatives. Even the Office of the President, Malacanang Palace, has had to issue statements to debunk it because of the potentiality that people would believe it as truth. In fact, in preparation for the recently concluded elections here in the Philippines, even our Commission on Elections had to issue statements on what they are doing in terms of AI, as if it was abused to create deep fakes that would undermine the credibility of candidates or to destroy others or the public officials themselves, or to create fake news to determine, to push voters one way through fake news, through outright falsehoods and lies. In fact, even recently, a Philippine senator drew flack over sharing videos of children who were objecting to a certain political activity in the Philippines. It turns out that those videos were AI-generated deep fakes. So again, I point out to you, much like before, it's not if it's online, it must be true. Think about it. Don't accept things as gospel truth. Use our God-given brains, talents to assess. And therefore, we can decide whether a particular AI could be real or not. In fact, let me test you. I credit this to Premier Gal, her YouTube video, Is It Real or Is It AI? Photos of two dogs. Which one do you think is real and which one do you think is generated by AI? The photo on the left is AI generated, while the photo on the right is real. When I took this test, I actually failed it. But now I realize, for instance, if you look at certain details, the texture of the nose is too perfect on the left figure. The whiskers of the dog are too perfectly straight, perfectly combed on the left photo. If anyone has a dog like me, I can't even get them to sit still for a photo this clear, much less be able to brush all of the hairs that I would show in the photo. What about this? Two ladies on the beach. Which one do you think is real? Which one do you think is AI? Photo on the left is real. It was generated using an AI online software with the prompt, I want an Asian girl looking far away on a beach. It looks like it's about to be gloomy or about to rain. On the right, photo on the right is a valid, real photo. What about this? A girl in what seems to be a bar, girl eating fast food. Are they the same girl? Here, both photos are actually AI. Compare these photos to the photos, the icons I used at the beginning of the presentation, and you would see in a year's time, when I first made this presentation, photos are getting much better. If you run these photos in all those softwares that I mentioned also, what would it show in terms of percentage of AI? It's up to you to decide. So, after hearing all of this, what now, really? My point is, it's a tool. We must educate and we must know how to properly and ethically use AI. It's not like we give chainsaws to children and let them use it whatever way they want to. You have to have a specific license to drive heavy machinery. These tools are not being banned. They're being educated, the use is being educated. And the licenses to access them are being regulated. We must figure out how to properly and ethically use it. Critical thinking, personal discernment is still crucial. Strengthen it. Fight against fake news, misinformation. And remember, when some lines are crossed, they can become crimes. Once that bill passes Congress, the creation and sharing of deep fakes, which may cause riots, for instance, would be a crime. And in some instances, they are already defined as crimes by legislation such as the Cybercrime Prevention Act or cyber libel, for instance. Last thoughts. a brilliant person once said, and I think this was done in 2018, AI, like the technology of the first industrial revolution, is supposed to take over tedious and tiresome functions, and therefore allowing people to engage in newer methods and processes. That person, that brilliant person was me in one of my columns in 2018. But it puts in perspective again what we're trying to say. It's a tool. Let's learn how to use it well. Let's learn how to use it efficiently with ethics and integrity, saving us time, effort, energy, and now we can focus on other things, higher function things. And with that, concludes my presentation. Again, thank you very much. My name is Atty. Ira Paolo Pozon, the Manager for Legal Policy and Quality Management here at SEAMEO INNOTECH. I'd love to hear your thoughts of the presentation. If you have questions, send me an email or scan the QR code, send us a message. Love to keep this discussion going. Thank you, everyone. Take care and God bless.